Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of Learning to Kite. In this video, we're going to go through how the theory of the wind works and how the kite flies within that wind window, it's called. So before diving in, one concept I forgot to mention in the intro is the importance of wind direction. So we want clean wind that isn't unpredictable and gusty, it's called. And this is extremely dangerous to be in because the kite will flap around, fall out of the sky, and be extremely unpredictable to handle because the wind quality is so poor. So we want clean wind, and therefore kiters always want to be flying kites in onshore, cross-shore, or cross-onshore wind. Ideally, we want cross-onshore wind. So wind direction is named based on the wind direction relative to the coast. So let's say we have this coast example here on Google Earth. If the wind is coming from this direction, we would call this onshore because it is blowing onto the shore. If the wind is coming from this direction, blowing away from the shore, we would call this offshore. Then this direction here would be cross onshore, and then this direction here would be cross shore. Now, as kiters, we are always looking for the cleanest wind, and therefore we are only interested in flying kites in onshore, cross-shore, or cross-onshore wind. Ideally, we want cross-onshore wind. So just be very mindful of this when choosing your spot. You can easily determine the wind direction by purely standing on the beach, and you should be able to tell which direction the wind is moving, or you can simply take a bit of dry sand, throw that in the air, and you'll be able to see which direction the wind is blowing. Again, just to highlight, we don't want to be kiting in anything to do with offshore wind, as this can be extremely dangerous. Number one, because it is so gusty and unpredictable, and number two, if we are out in the water and something goes wrong, we get blown out to sea, where in a cross onshore wind or an onshore wind, if something goes wrong, we get blown back into the shore. As you can see here in this example, I've put an arrow in the sand, and as you can see, this is cross onshore wind. So the kite itself is structured using an inflatable frame with a canopy attached to the inflatable frame. All kites are designed to fly forward in the wind. So if you're standing still on the beach, the leading edge, or the largest inflatable bladder of the kite, that leading edge it's called, will always be facing you when you're flying the kite and you're standing on the beach. And when you're flying the kite standing on the beach with the leading edge facing you, the kite will fly in a semicircular area in front of you, and that is called the wind window. Why we refer to the wind window, it's an easy way to essentially refer to where the kite is and the kite positioning within that area. In terms of referring to where the kite is in the wind window, we correlate that to the time on a clock. So if you had to take the top half of a clock, that would obviously range from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and that's how we refer to where the kite is in that wind window. So as you can see here, my kite is straight above me, and therefore we'd say that my kite is at 12 o'clock. As you can see here, my kite's slightly over to the right. We'd say that my kite's at 1 o'clock, and here my kite is slightly over to the left, and we'd say that my kite is at 11 o'clock. So that is the basics of the wind window explained. Now, in this example here, as you can see, I've colored the different areas of the wind window differently, and this refers to the power zones within the wind window. Obviously, the kite is designed to fly forward in the window, and when you're standing still on the beach flying that kite is kind of bouncing out of the wind all the time, and therefore it's in a very low power zone, and that is obviously demonstrated by the green strip around the edge. So when you're learning, the kite will 90% of the time be in that low power zone. Now, when you start riding and you need the power to pull you, then you start moving that kite into the power zones to give you the power that you need to ride. Now, as you can see here, I've colored this orange and red. As you move or dip the kite down into these power zones, it'll give you a certain degree of power. So obviously, the more you dip that into the red zone, the more power and the more pull you're going to get from the kite. So that's everything I wanted to mention with regards to the wind window. We'll obviously touch on this in much more detail when we go through how to fly the kite, but just know that when you're learning, ideally you want to always keep that kite in the low power zone, which is obviously the green area. So steering that kite very slowly and moving that across the wind window while keeping that kite in those green zones to not get overwhelmed by the kite's power. So that's everything I wanted to mention in this episode. Again, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Again, we're going to go through all of this in more detail in later videos, so stay tuned for those. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now. soon.